What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the shop. Now this is part 2 of this Jiu-Jitsu belt display rack that I'm building for the Jiu-Jitsu Academy where I train. If you've not seen part 1, I'll leave a link up here, so go check that out first. It's turned out really well. I'm delighted with it. I've made it in the style of the club logo, which is here. So I've replicated this part here. So there's lots of interesting stuff going on with the build. Like I say, if you haven't checked out part 1, go back and have a look at that first. In part 2, it's all about sanding, applying the oil finish, and the final assembly. So some cool stuff happening with this this display rack, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So get ready for part 2. Here we go. Right guys, let's crack on with this project. So we have to get everything sanded, assembled, and then oiled. So first job is to sand this frame, get all these pieces sanded before we put it together. Then I'm going to put it, get it assembled, glue it up, get it clamped, let that set aside. Then we can work on the main piece. I've already been over everything with an 80 grit sandpaper with a random orbital sander. I'm going to take everything up through the various grits up to 240 grit. And that should be good enough, and then we're going to put the Danish oil finish on it. So that should be interesting enough too. So let's crack on. I'm going to sand this frame and assemble it. The first thing I'm going to do is these sanding blocks are very handy just to knock down the edges. I've already used it over all the edges of the main piece, and just to rub your hand along it feels really nice. It just knocks off the hard edge off everything, and it's so easy to do. Just grab the sanding block, give it a quick run down the side, nothing major. And to feel that is just so silky smooth and slightly just rounded over. It feels really nice to the touch. It just takes that harshness off the edge. You don't have to plane or do anything like that. Just get these sanding sponges and a quick rub up and down. Just go over all the corners. And the sponge is nice and soft, so the corner actually digs into it, so you kind of wrap around that corner. And it just gives it a really nice, smooth feel to it, so it's nice and tactile. So just hit every single corner. Only takes a couple of strokes. Let it dig into the sponge, let the sponge wrap around the edge. It's amazing the difference, just a couple of strokes with the sanding sponge and how that edge feels. So I'm going to do all of these now. Let me crack on and do this. Okay, there we go. That's all the edges broken on our frame, our belt frame piece. And like I say, those sanding sponges are great for doing this. It just feels lovely and smooth once you've done it, and it's taken that harsh edge off it. So it's really nice to run your hands along. So that's a little tip for you. It literally takes seconds. Don't have to use a hand plane, chisel. Don't use the orbital sander or anything like that. Just grab a little sanding block, let the corner dig into that sponge, quick once up and down, and you get a lovely tactile edge to feel, nice and slightly rounded over, and that harshness broken off the edge. So I've hit these with 80 grit. I'm going to hit them with a 120 grit now on this orbital sander. Let's do that. Right, just going to hit this frame now with some 120 grit. I'm trying out these new type sanding discs. They're kind of porous ones. They're Stanley Fat Max. They're supposed to last 4 times longer. So we'll see. One of these is the equivalent of 4 kind of standard discs. We'll see. We'll put that to the test. I'll let you know. But I've already been over it with the 80 grit. So this is a 120 grit. So there's not much to this. Just take your time. Don't move the sander over and back fast. That'll give you swirl marks. This thing has a random orbit to it. That's why it's called a random orbital sander. It kind of moves in a circle and an elliptical pattern at the same time. So just make sure your piece is clean. Use a shop vac or use a sander that has one of these attachments, dust gatherers, because it sucks the dust up into it, and you're not swirling the dust over your surface, so you don't get those pigtails. So yeah, enough of me talking now. Let's get sanding. It's going to be a bit noisy. Right, the glue up of this frame. Now, if you've watched my channel, you've seen me glued stuff up 100 times, so you guys can probably skip ahead. But for anybody who hasn't, always do a dry run first. So pre-clamp everything, just so you know how well our clamps are going together, and make sure that it's actually going to work for you. It's no good finding out it's not going to work when all the glue is on, then you start pulling your hair out and panicking. Another good tip is just to have a damp cloth with you. Once the cloth is anyway wet, it's easy to wipe off the excess glue. It'll just come straight off with a damp cloth, and you don't have to scrape it and sand it off afterwards. If you want to fill any gaps, if you see me doing the sanding there, if you put the dust collector on the sander and just gather up the dust powder or the sand, the sawdust, it's a real fine powder that comes off those orbital sanders, and it's ideal for filling the gaps. So after I've sanded this maple, I've kept all the maple sawdust. I have a few little gaps here and there where, you know, I wasn't 100% perfect, but it's fill it with this and sand it, and you won't even see them afterwards. So that's another little tip. So let me get the glue up going. I'm going to shut up talking now. This probably just hit this on fast forward, and I get this thing glued up. Right, there we go, guys, all glued up, and I've checked that we're 100% square, and we are. All four corners are exactly square according to the engineer square, so that's good enough for me. Again, handy to have a damp cloth with you. Just clean around all the joints when you get that bit of squeeze out, because it's a little bit tricky trying to get into corners with sandpaper. It's a nightmare after, it takes forever and it really slows the job down. So now's the time to do it with a damp cloth. Just give it a quick wipe around and get as much excess off as you can. Again, keep the little, that really fine sawdust that comes off those orbital sanders. It's ideal for filling gaps. And like I say, when it's sanded later on and before the finish goes on, you won't even see it. So that's another little tip for you. Right, that's that job done. Let's get on to the main piece. Right, guys, we're back on the main piece here, and you can see just where the damage is right here. So I have to do something about this. You can see how the other side comes down to a point, and it's fine. It's a really fine point, and it just got caught and snapped off. So I need to try and glue in a piece here now just to repair this, because you will see the underneath of it. And this maple gets very, very thin. It's a thing about trying to replicate a design in timber. It's not always so easy, especially if the design comes down to really fine points like this. You know, timber gets very weak when it gets down to that thin, and it's easy to break. So yeah, I'm just going to try and plane this now, and see what I can do with it. If it's even possible to plane it. I might have to take a chisel to it, I think. Let's see, let's have a look. Now, I have to try and get a piece to sit in there. How easy will that be? Not very. But yeah, this is going to take a bit of ingenuity. So I think I'm going to have to cut a piece off, clamp it down, and then try and sand it straight, and hopefully blend it in maybe with a bit of sawdust and stuff. So yeah, let's get on that. Okay, so you can see what I decided to go with there. I actually cut a piece out of it completely, squared up a little tip for the end, stuck this on and glued it in, and hopefully when I sand all this you won't even see it. So yeah, that's just a little repair job I had to do first, and as soon as this sets and dries, then we can start with the sanding process for this big piece here. So yeah, let's let this thing dry and we get back to it. Okay, I have that little piece repaired there now, so I will sand that and blend it in. I'll show you that when it's done. But for now, while that's still setting a small bit, I'm going to start sanding this main body. So it's going to be from 80 to 120 to 240 grit. I've cleaned down the work area now because I'm getting onto the finishing. And so I've used some mineral spirits just to clean off the workbench as well. So I don't want to be marking the piece now. So you really, when you want to get down to your final sanding levels, you don't want to get marks into it because you have to sand them back out again. So try and keep everything as clean as you can. There's not much more I can say than that. So what I'll do is I'm just going to sand this now. There's no point in me showing you guys because it'll just bore you to tears. It's just me using an orbital sander. There's nothing to it really. Again, just take your time. Don't drag the sander across the piece. That'll give you spirals in your piece. Work areas and slowly move across and just try and keep it as flat as you can. That's all there is to it really. Move through your grits and keep everything nice and clean. Right, I'll rock on with that and okay guys, everything is now sanded and prepared. Now I have to drill all the holes, my holes for my screws, for my frames, for my mounting brackets, get all that done before I get the finishing done. And I need to screw the holes for the belts, so the tying points for the belts. So I've allowed a 20mm gap between each belt. Each belt is 40mm thick, so it'll sit like this with a 20mm gap between each belt, so the 5 belts will sit in there. And you have a 20mm gap then from either end. And so it's the middle of that 20mm gap then, and I need to drill my holes for my belts. So my belts will be tied on through these holes. I'm going to use a 16mm Frostner bit to drill these out. And I'm probably going to tie them on with like a heavy kind of a boot lace or something like that, like a black boot lace. I think is probably the best thing to do. I don't think I'll get out thin enough rope, although I might. We'll see. But a kind of a flat black lace, I think, like a heavy boot lace might be the best option to go with to tie the belts on. So yeah, I need to drill out these now, 16mm holes. Nice and easy and as straight down as I can go. Doesn't help that the bit is extremely blunt. I'm going to just go foil this and see if we can get it working better than that. Okay, I've sharpened the bit and that first hole didn't drill as nice as I would hope, but I should be able to recover from it. So it's just a case, I'm just going to keep checking the depth. I don't want to break out the far side. That's better. Okay, so I have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to do on this side, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 to do on this side. So let me do that and I'll get back to you. Right guys, now I need to pre-drill my holes to mount my frame. And this is where the laser comes in handy again. If you've watched any of my videos, you see me making the guitars, you see me use this laser before. It's just great for aligning everything up. It makes everything so simple. So I have a laser now going straight through the middle of this piece. You might be able to see it, it's just right there. Hopefully you can see it with my hand. And I've just marked the pencil line, the dead center of this frame. So the holes are all drilled now and everything is sanded, so it's ready to go on. So all I gotta do is line up this pencil line and this pencil line with my laser. I know that this thing is dead center now. I just want to line that up at the bottom of that. right there, and that should be good. And I should be the exact same distance off the bottom both sides. Let's just check that. 36 and 36 mil exactly both sides. So I'm good and I'm level. Now what I want to do is just make a pencil mark for where I want to drill my screw holes. And I want to be center of my uprights, just to put the screw holes there. So I'm going to mark that there, there, front and back. There. There. And there. And now I'm going to drill 4 holes through the front of this, and then they'll be countersunk from the back. And when it comes time to screw this on, then it'll be screwed through the back, and I will have 2 maple pieces, just kind of 2 roughly prepared maple pieces that will go on the back of this as well. They'll be screwed to the back with countersunk screws, and my mounting brackets then will be fixed to these. So that's everything lined up. Just to show you how handy it is to use a laser just to get your perfect alignments. You know, if it's laser straight, it is straight and it is good. So drill the holes next. Okay, time to start applying this finish, but first we have to clean everything off. So I'm just going to be a little bit more particular than usual. I'm going to wipe everything down with some mineral spirits, just to make sure there's no contaminants on the surface and everything is nice and clean. So just wash this whole thing down. This stuff will evaporate off pretty quick anyway, so we don't have to wait too long for it to dry. Right, now that we have everything cleaned up, it's ready to apply the finish. So we're going to be using Danish oil. Now, Danish oil has got nothing to do with Denmark. I don't know why they call it Danish oil, but essentially what it is, it'll either be tung oil mixed with some polyurethane and some other things, or it might be some linseed oil mixed with some polyurethane. So it's, instead of just putting tung oil on, you have a little bit of poly in with it, just to give it a little bit of a harder coat. It still will penetrate the wood. It doesn't sit on top of the wood, but you can build it up. Most manufacturers don't actually tell you what's in it, but this one says it has tung oil in it, which is good. A lot of the ones, it won't tell you whether it's tung oil or linseed oil, but yeah, so it's basically, it's thinners, oil, and some polyurethane. You can actually make your own Danish oil. Just take a bit of linseed oil, pour some thinners into it, and put some polyurethane into it as well. That's basically what it is. So it's nothing fancy. Right, so I'm going to dollop this on now and start rubbing it on. Again, all you need is some kitchen towel, will do the job perfectly. You get a coat on, leave it for a few minutes, and then wipe off the excess. Let that dry for a few hours, come back and do the same thing. So I'm going to be doing this throughout the course of this night. And yeah, I'll just show you the first coat going on, and then leave it to me, and I'll show you the last coat going on. I want to get a recording of this for Instagram as well. It's always nice to see the first coat go on. So we can just kind of dollop this on now. Right, one Instagram video done, now I can pay attention to what I'm doing. Right, so guys, it is just exactly as simple as that. Get your coat in, coat on, dollop it on and rub it in. And you can begin to see what the final piece is going to look like now. The first few coats should disappear into the wood as it absorbs it in. I'm going to get a few coats on this, then I'll do a final sanding, and then it'll be a case of final coat and we should be ready for assembly. Alright, there we go guys, that's what it's going to look like. Not too bad. Okay, that's the final sanding done. So I just want to check over, make sure there's no swirl marks in it before we get on the last coat or two. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, let's get this final coat of oil in. And we're almost home. And the last coat or two can just be light oils. You don't have to go heavy at all. The first coat or two will be after penetrating into the wood now, so this can just be a nice light coat. What I love about oil finishes, they kind of give a natural finish to the wood and they're so easy to put on. Very hard to mess up, although you can mess it up if you leave too much on. Don't wipe off the excess, get swirl marks in the sanding. Remember, there is polyurethane in Danish oil, so you can build it up to an almost like a lacquer effect. Almost, not quite now, but so you can leave lots of swirl marks and surface marks and things like that in it. And it will capture dust and little particles will stick to your finish and dry into it, so that's why the final sanding is nice. It just knocks out any little imperfections or little lumps. And we just get a nice thin top coat on then. Lovely, we'll just give that a few minutes to dry. I'll get a clean towel then and just wipe it down, and we'll see how that looks. Maybe one more coat might do it. Right, everything is dried up. I'm happy with the finish, so we're going to leave it at that. I'm on to the final assembly now. So I've just clamped my piece in place. I've checked everything 20 times to make sure that all the measurements are correct. I've countersunk the holes from the back for the screws. So now I'm just going to flip this over, drill 2 pilot holes and get these bottom 2 screws in first. So yeah, this is critical now. I have to make sure that this does not move. So I have 3 clamps on it and I just need to flip it over. It's a bit of an awkward shape, so it's not so easy to work with. And actually I'm going to have to move one of those clamps now. So turn it back over. To the edge, make sure nothing has moved. Beautiful. That is our frame secured on now for our belt rack. Lovely. Right, we are just about finished this project. I think it's probably a week since the last clip you just saw. The belts have arrived. I'm just back from training, so I want to put these on now and see how it's all going to work out. I'm excited to see the final product. I have some nice black 3mm rope here to tie on the belts. So without further ado, let's get these belts on, let's get this project finished, and we will see the final article. I'm looking forward to it. It's turned out quite nice. So let's do it. Okay guys, as I've already explained, the belts are going to sit on it like this. So we have our 5 belts, our 5 different colours. These are nice new belts, so they're already perfectly folded. I just need to tie them on, and we're going to use this 3mm black rope. So I'm going to try and make this as nice as possible. It's just some 3mm, if you can see it there you go. Some 3mm black corded rope. There's about 50 meters on this coil, which is way too much, but that doesn't matter. So yeah, this will probably be on fast forward as I tie all the belts on. I just want to come up with a way of doing it first, and then I will get back to you. Okay guys, hopefully you can see that there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 4 wraps of the rope each side. I think that's a good thickness. It looks nice. And the belts will sit on exactly like that width. So it's just a case of put on the other 4 belts now, tie them on, and just tidy up the ends of our ropes, just a figure of 8 knot, cinch everything down, put a figure of 8 knot on the back of it. That won't move, and everything's nice and tight. The rope, I think, gives it a nice kind of a traditional feel. And yeah, it's going to look pretty good. So let me crack on and tie on these 5 belts. It's literally just wrap them through the holes 4 times and tie a knot on it. So let's do that. I'll put you guys back here so you can see exactly what's going on. Just like that. Okay, let me get on the rest of these. Right guys, there we go. That is the end of this project, and I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So I hope the guys in the club will like it, and it will inspire them all to make their way from white belt to black belt. It's no easy task. Very, very few people do it, but hopefully this will just be something that they can put up on the wall, and the guys can look at, and maybe it might, you know, give them a small bit of inspiration, because it's bloody hard work. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it's inspired you to get out and do some woodworking or start a project, or even get involved with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's one of the best things I've ever done. So I highly recommend that, along with the woodworking. So yeah, that's it guys. Hopefully this one's been interesting. I know it's been interesting for me. As always, comments and questions below. I will get back to you. And hit like and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Take it easy.